Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Sonnet, the owner and creator behind Sonnet's Garden Blooms, and in today's video, you are getting another Thrift to Treasure. So part 2 of the IOD release, and stick around because it's a good one, guys. I cannot wait to hear what you guys think. For project 1, I'm using the new transfer called Collage de Roses, and you guys, this is beautiful. It is jam-packed full of so many beautiful images, and think of everything that you can do with this. Honestly, you could put these on a beautiful furniture piece or all the way down to small items, and that's what I'm going to show you today in project 1. If you missed my Friday live, I went live during the IOD release, and actually I cut a chunk of this transfer out and I put it on this vase. The question was, do I add one more small flower that kind of dips off? I think I might, but I love how that floral pops off that white vase. So let's get started. Anytime I'm out thrifting and I see these little silver teapots, I always grab them. They have been very popular in my booths and displays. So what my vision here is, I want to paint just the base of that teapot. I still want a little bit of that tarnished silver to be like on the handles and on the top and the feet. And then I'm going to apply some transfers. And I saw these white roses, or like creamy roses, and I thought it was going to be perfect. I want to put one on each side, and I love that there's some leaves on there and then another little tiny bud rose. It is perfect, and it was the perfect size for this little teapot. The first thing we're going to do though is we are going to paint this French eggshell from Fusion, and if you have not used Fusion paint before, it does have a built-in top coat. Now, isn't this just a beautiful color? It has definitely been one of my go-to colors for a lot of projects lately. So if you've been following along my lives or any of my past videos, I have been breaking into this color quite a bit, and I just feel like it's so springy. So what I'm doing here is applying just one even coat to the entire base, and then I'm going to let it dry, come back, and then apply a second coat. Because this has a built-in top coat, there's no reason to seal. So once it dries, then we can go in with that transfer. And that's key, guys, is you always want your paint or your top coat to be completely dry before you apply the transfer. Here it is, 2 coats, and I love how it looks even at this point. I think it looks so pretty. But I want to add these transfers. Now, when you are applying transfers to a rounded surface, it is a little bit more challenging. And the reason that is because the transfer is really meant to be on a flat surface. So I try to start either in the center and work my way one way or the other, or either start on one side and kind of work my way. And this transfer went on fairly well. There were a couple little hiccups, but I did figure out how to cover that up. I added a few more transfers at the end, so you'll have to watch that. But what happened is this was definitely far more curved than what I was anticipating, and it kind of pulled up in a couple spots, but I love the look of it. I love how it looks very aged, and it has a little bit of like cracking to it. I just think it goes with the whole look and feel of the entire teapot. Now I flip it over and I'm going to apply the second transfer, and then if you look, there's like an indentation where there was a dent. Just make sure that when you get to that spot, you really make sure that your transfer gets in that indentation. That way too, even if you have a surface that has some ridges on it, you just want to make sure that you start and you get in all the ridges so that the transfer completely fits and it does not crack. After I looked at the teapot, once I had both transfers on, there were just a couple spots that I felt like needed a little bit of cover up. I went back into the transfer book and there was a full page of vines, and then on the other page there was just one single vine. I took some chunks of the vine, or it's like an ivy vine, and I chopped it up and I made it just fit in certain areas of the transfer. And you guys, it looks so good. Honestly, I love it even more now than I did before. I think that it just added just a little bit of something to the piece, just a little bit more dimension to the image. And I went and I applied it even in areas that there weren't any, spots that needed a bit of like cover up, but it all turned out so beautiful in the end. And I just finagled, those little bits of transfer here and there, like I said. And that is the great thing about the IOD transfers, is that you can cut them apart, place them however you want. You can combine different transfers together to create whatever look you're going for. Now that I have all the transfers placed and everything burnished, I am sealing it with Big Top. And yes, Fusion does have a top coat built in, but anytime you're using an IOD transfer, it is definitely recommended to seal it afterwards. You want to make sure that it has that bit of added protection. I'm applying just one even coat to this entire piece. If you were applying a transfer to more of a heavily used area, I would definitely put a couple extra coats. For project 2, I am using the new paint inlay called Petite Fleur Pink, and there's one called Petite Fleur Red, and these two have been extremely popular with this new IOD release. I think that it is because there's so many different paint inlays in here, you guys. It's just jam-packed full. So I'm going to show you now, and look at all of them. They're so gorgeous. I love all these little flowers. It kind of reminds me of the rose chintz floral, and like I said, there are so many pieces in here that you can use them on big projects all the way down to small projects like we're going to do in today's video. Now, I did complete a project while I was doing my live on Friday, and I put a paint inlay in this silver dish. I painted it white and I applied that paint inlay, and look how it pops off that white paint. It's absolutely gorgeous. Now, the one thing I want to also mention is that each paint inlay can be used up to 4 times, and you're definitely getting your money's worth out of this one, you guys. So each time you use a paint inlay, just remember that it gets a little bit more distressed looking every single time. So it has more of like a little worn look. I love it. Found this gravy bowl. I paid $1.99 for it. It looks like it was from Pier 1, and it reminds me of ironstone, but I wanted to add a bit of like a cottagey feel to it, almost like a shabby chic look. So I am using this paint inlay, and initially I was only going to use one of the pieces on one side. After I got looking, I decided to put one on each side. Now, the one thing I also want to mention is that I hear often that people are afraid to use paint inlays. You guys, they are so easy. Do not be afraid. Just try them out. Honestly, they are so easy and so fun. You can apply a paint inlay with either a top coat, such as Big Top, or you can apply them in paint. When you're applying in a top coat, it's just a little bit more time sensitive than if you're applying it in paint. And what you need to do with the top coat is just to apply a nice even layer of the top coat. And then when I saw Jonathan Mark Mendez, he did recommend that you mist your paint inlay to activate the paint on that paint inlay. So I mist it, and then what I do is I lay it in that top coat. And after that, then I mist over the top of the paint inlay to wet the paper entirely. And then I take either like my finger or a rag, and I just wipe, I basically wipe the inlay to really embed it into either the paint that you're using or the top coat. With the top coat, this is the time sensitive part of it. I use a heat gun and I actually dry it and I wash it, and I want the paper to start looking like dry, but not overly dry, because we're using a top coat. We don't want to seal this. So when you're using a top coat, you're going to want to watch it much more closely. Once it's dry, then it's time to go back in, or like partially dry, I should say, go back in with that misting bottle, remist your paper, and then peel it back. Here's what the paint inlay looks like after it's semi-dry. Remist it, and then just take your finger and wipe it all over the paper to make sure all the paper got wet, and then start on one side and then start peeling it back. And as you can see, the paint inlay then is embedded into that top coat, and doesn't it look absolutely gorgeous? Like it's always been there, you guys. I love it. Then we're going to flip it over, and then we're going to mist the other side and do the exact same thing. And it really is that easy. Just start peeling on one side and peel it back. And this is so satisfying, seeing that paint inlay either embedded in the top coat or in a paint. And it's completely transformed the look of this gravy boat. Even though we used a top coat, still save these. I have demoed that all you need to do is remist them with water and apply them in whatever you're trying to use, whether it be paint or another top coat, and it will work again. The last step is to seal your paint inlay. And I have been asked, but you put it into a top coat, you need to reseal it. And yes, I would recommend applying one additional coat of sealer. And my recommendation is load up your paintbrush and with a very light hand apply the top coat. I have heard people say that it's smeared. You are using too heavy of a brush stroke, and that's putting pressure on that paint inlay and making it smear. So with a very, very light hand, just rub over it and apply that top coat. If you do not feel like you can do that, you can mix a 50-50 mixture of top coat and water, and you can mist it, let it dry, and then go in with your top coat. For project 3, I am using the new transfer called Lover of Flowers. And you guys, this is packed full of botanicals, sayings. It is so beautiful. This is one of the smaller transfer sets, and these have been very popular. I think that because it's so compact and it is jam-packed full of different transfers, it's become very popular. During my Friday Live, I used a poppy from the transfer book, and I made a book stack for me. I love poppies, and I love how this turned out. If you missed my Friday video, I used this transfer set on this vintage book, and in the video, it started off a bit rough, and I had to work through the process, but I think it turned out pretty darn awesome. So you'll have to watch Friday's video if you missed it. Today's project is a vintage lunchbox, so stick around and see what we do with it. To start this project, I am using cashmere, which is a fusion mineral paint. I just thought it was the perfect creamy white for this project. I looked in the transfer book and I compared, the colors, trying to figure out what color I wanted to paint this box, and I finally settled on cashmere. I felt like it went with all the transfers in that transfer kit. I am applying one even coat to the entire box, letting it dry, coming back and applying a second coat. Once the box is completely dry, then we can start applying those transfers. And that is key, you guys. Always make sure that either your top coat or your paint is completely dry before you apply your transfers. Now that it's dry, let's go inside this transfer kit and see which one is going to be the perfect fit for this lunchbox. And as I stare at just that first image, I realize that this is the image that I want, and I don't even have to look any further. And typically, when you see this image, you would think that you'd want to use it as a whole piece. And that is not how I'm going to do that. I am going to cut it up into a couple different chunks and apply it on this lunchbox. That is the really nice thing about transfers, and especially the IOD transfers, is you guys can cut them apart and use them however you want. So I am going to cut off this bottom chunk and I'm going to use it on the very top. Then I'm going to take some of the wording and use it on the bottom, and then the rest of it I'm going to use it on the back of the actual lunchbox. If you haven't used a transfer before, it is so easy. Peel off that back, position it, and then lay it down. And I rub my hand all over to really get it to adhere. Then I take my transfer stick, which comes with the transfer, and I start on one side, and I start rubbing, and I start peeling off that top piece, and I just work my way from one side to the other. And it's amazing how just one transfer really will change the look and feel of whatever project you're working on. Next, like I said, I wanted to use that script on the bottom, and I cut that out, I line it up, and again, I start doing the exact same thing. Keep in mind, because the letters are so small and they're individual, that just make sure that as you're, peeling back that top piece, that if any of the letters don't come or don't apply, just lay it right back down and rub again. Next, I flipped it over and I'm using the rest of this chunk right on the back. I love how a bit of the transfer is a little bit longer on one side, and I like that font right in the center. What I'm doing again is just starting on the top and working my way down. The key here is that there are hinges on this side. And what you want to do is you want to work your transfer into the hinge. So you want it to be embedded in there. So you start and you rub on the top, then rub in the center. And then once that all gets adhered, then you work on the bottom. And I do that for both sides and it works perfectly. I love how just taking that one transfer, cutting it up, and placing pieces of the transfer here and there on this lunchbox, it just completely transforms the look and feel of it. Plus, that one transfer, typically a person would just think, I have to use that all in one piece. And I love how we cut it up and used it all over. And I think this whole piece just looks absolutely gorgeous. I love to embrace the imperfections of pieces, and if you notice by the handle, I love how the handle is old and vintage, and then there's like a bit of rustiness on the clasps that hold that handle, and the locking mechanisms, I love those. So because the whole piece now looks somewhat perfect, I want to distress it back and I want it to look a bit aged and worn. So I am taking a piece of sandpaper and I am just going to rough sand here and there, where natural age and wear would occur, and just all over the piece. And I just want to bring back some of that darkness from underneath, even some of that that silver underneath. I just want to make it look worn and aged. The last thing we're going to do is seal it with Big Top. And anytime you have a transfer, you do want to seal it. I know that I did mention that we used Fusion mineral paint, and that does have a built-in sealer, so that is fine. But anytime you use a transfer, you do want to seal it to give it a bit of added protection. So I'm applying 1 even coat of Big Top to the entire piece, and this project will be finished. I hope that I've inspired you guys to go out and try some of those new IOD products. And I want to thank you all that showed your support and ordered from my small business. So I definitely appreciate that from you. The store is cleaned out for a lot of the new products. I did place another order, so those will be back in stock real soon. So definitely for your shopping pleasure. There's a lot more products that I have not featured in my last 2 videos. So I plan on having some more future videos just focusing on the IOD new release. It was so awesome, and I hope you guys loved it as much as I did. Now, Thursday's video is going to be my episode 2 of my podcast. So it's a video podcast. If you just want to hear the podcast portion, you can find me over on Apple Podcast or Spotify. But if you want to watch the video, it is out there. It will be out there on Thursday. So Friday's video, you guys, guess what's happening Friday? So much is happening. It is the new Roycycled Treasure release. As of right now, that is what I have slotted in for Friday's video, and I will be showcasing the new release in Friday's video. You guys are going to love it. I did the moment I saw it. There are so many goodies in that release. So be watching for that video. And then next week, I am going to be tackling my PhD again. You know, projects half done. I will definitely be focusing on some of those. I need to get some more out of this area. I need to clean up my studio. My projects half done ended up in here, so we will be cleaning that out and getting a lot of the items put in my booth. So I hope you guys enjoy your week, and we'll see you guys then on Friday. Bye.